Good morning and welcome to Act for Mental Health in the Workplace. For those of you that don't know me, I am Julie Allen, and this webinar, if you haven't attended before, I'm using on Crowdcast, is live and is recording. So this webinar will be available immediately after we finish this morning. And for those of you interested, you will be able to watch the recording, or some of you may now be watching this as a recording. So the reason that I am talking about Act for Mental Health in the Workplace today is because today is World Mental Health Day. World Mental Health Day is celebrated on the 10th of October annually. And today, this year's theme is about raising awareness of mental health issues for all globally. The World Health Organization believes that in the first year of the global pandemic, that anxiety and depressive issues increased by about 25%. We all know the impact that the COVID pandemic had in terms of disruption to services and the gaps that that has left. Today, I'm talking about mental health in the workplace. So either you as an individual working in an organisation, or in fact, some of you who perhaps are employers or managers will be aware of the impact that poor mental health is having in the workplace, and also the gaps in service provision and the impact that that is having for the people that work for you. So today, what I hope to do is to share some information that will help you with that. And that is, as I work with organisations, I can talk about mental health in the workplace, as that's something that I'm dealing with on an ongoing basis. So thank you for joining me this morning. I see some of you have already started in the chat box. So good morning. Those of you that have introduced yourself and that I know well, good morning, Tori. Good morning, Sharon. Thank you for joining us. Roisin, and good morning, Sheena. Thank you for joining. I know there's a few more of you that have joined live and haven't yet introduced yourself. Good morning, Colin. Here we go. Good morning, Charlene. Good morning, Rowan. Thank you all for joining me. So what am I going to cover this morning? So what I want to do is I'm going to talk about what mental health is. I'm going to talk about why we all need to invest in mental health and mental health in the workplace. I'm going to talk about a super skill called psychological flexibility. And I'm going to talk about the impact that that can have on our mental health and what that is. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate how you can improve your psychological flexibility and could improve your mental health and well-being. And at that point, those of you that have joined me before, I'd like you to get very involved when I come to that demonstration. So good morning, Elizabeth. Good morning, Teresa. And good morning, Gillian. Thank you all for joining me. Most importantly for you, thank you for taking the time out for yourself to be reflecting on your own mental health and well-being. I'm not going to force you, but I'm going to ask a question because it is of interest to me. I'd love to know why you've joined me here this morning. I'd like to make this as useful as possible for you. So if you could tell me why you're here, I'll try to consider that over the next hour that we are together. So the next hour will include questions and answers. So feel free to put questions in the chat box and I will answer those as I can and go along. And certainly I will leave some questions open at the end of the session if you have any. So let's first of all look at a healthy workplace, because I'm talking about this morning Act for mental health in the workplace. So a healthy workplace described by the World Health Organization is one where employees and managers work together to protect and promote their health, safety and well-being and the sustainability of the business. So mental health is really everyone's business. And I said earlier that it's important that we all invest in health and well-being in the workplace. And we can all do that as individuals, coming together collectively to help everyone in the workplace with their health and well-being. So if we then just look at, well, let's look at the definition of what is mental health. What are the World Health Organization defining mental health as? So they define mental health as a state of well-being in which every individual realizes his or her own potential, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. In this case, the community we're talking about is in the workplace, but I'll also refer to community in other senses as we go through the session. So Tori's got involved in using the chat box, so I'm just going to flip back here. Here, because using ACT as much as possible, Tori and her leadership team learned how to use ACT in the workplace quite a number of years ago, and always trying to improve the knowledge and offer in terms of wellness. Remote first, yes, has had a big impact on mental health. So yeah, and looking for ways to support. So Column, thanks to have a better understanding of mental health so that we can support staff as much as possible and create a culture. So I'm going to try to do both of those things again. Please feel free not to feel shy, get involved in the chat box. I really do like these to be interactive. Sharon, Sharon's a regular attending these webinars. Great to hear from you. So last year, yeah, you trained 4 of your employees as mental health first aiders, and they will hopefully help the company on its journey. So I hope I'm going to be able to add to all of that this morning. So why invest in mental health? So what I've already told you is the World Health estimates that anxiety and depressive orders in the first year of the pandemic increased by 25%. Well, even before that, really about 1 billion people we know are living with a mental health disorder. So these are global statistics, again, from the World Health Organization. Cover those and then I'll start to talk about, well, why do these figures really matter? Why am I talking about these this morning? So 3 million people die every year from the harmful use of alcohol. 1 in 4 we know, we've heard this statistic for some time, will be affected by mental health issue at some stage in their lives. Depression is one of the leading causes of disability. And a very sad statistic is every 40 seconds someone globally dies by suicide. And mental health disorders could cost the global economy up to $16 trillion between 2010 and 2030. Why are we talking about these figures when I'm talking about mental health in the workplace? These are global statistics. And that's because this matters to everyone. There isn't anyone around you that isn't being impacted by mental health. There's bound to be somebody that you know is going to be impacted by perhaps even some mental health disorder and you're unaware of it. There's someone around you that's suffering from depression. There's perhaps someone around you that's suffering from the abuse of alcohol. And there's someone around you that could be considering suicide. So these things matter to every one of us. And that's why you're all here today. You've taken the time out. And so I'm preaching to the converted in many ways. Sheena's just in the chat box. In the workplace, would like to be in a position to recognise and support colleagues who are perhaps struggling. Thank you, Sheena. And I hope I'm going to give you some tools to be able to do that this morning. I'm also sharing with you now the Gallup State of the Global Workplace Report 2022. Feel free to go online and download this publication. Gallup will conduct an annual survey looking at employee engagement levels globally, but they also ask questions around emotions. And, if we're thinking about mental health in the workplace, I want to share this with you because this is plotting from 2009 to 2021. Gallup call these the daily negative emotions. Those of you that know me and know me in terms of using ACT, I'll not use that word negative. Ashley, I think it's important to be able to support people as best we can. It only takes one conversation. You're absolutely right. But looking at the trends in this graph are showing that stress in the workplace is at an all-time high at 44%. Worry, we can see, has dropped a little bit in terms of the year before, 2020. But what we can see is there is a trend here of worry rising. My guess is when we do this in 2022 again, that Gallup will find that worry has increased because there's lots for people to worry about. The cost of living crisis, the news just fills us with dread at times because it appears as if there's never any good news. We can see here even that the levels of anger and the levels of sadness as well have been broadly increasing year on year, certainly higher than they were in 2009. So if you think about your workplace, stress, worry, anger, and sadness is showing up on a daily basis. It may not be showing up on a daily basis with the same employees every day, but I will guess that those 4 emotions are showing up every single day with your employees. And I'll share with you later how I know that. So we're thinking about those emotions that are showing up. The reason that you're here today is you want to find a way to help people improve their mental health. You're maybe here today because you personally want to improve your mental health. And so I will be helping with both of those things. And the way in which I do that is by helping individuals develop something called psychological flexibility. So psychological flexibility is the ability for an individual to take action or to behave in a way that brings them satisfaction, even in the presence of uncomfortable thoughts, feelings, and experiences. So even in the presence of stress, worry, sadness, and anger, that you have the ability to take action and behave in a way that brings you satisfaction. We know that research shows that psychological flexibility is the cornerstone of good psychological health and well-being. More recently, some research that was conducted over the last 12 months has highlighted that really psychological flexibility is very much a super skill. And I will, through demonstration today, demonstrate how you can improve your psychological flexibility. You need to try it for yourself. You need to see if it works for you. I know the difference it has made to me and my life, and also those clients that I work with. And we have Tori back today, trained years ago, looking to continue to develop her skills. So I can only but assume that using what I will introduce and developing psychological flexibility is still working for her and her team. So if you have the ability as an individual to take action and behave in a way that brings you satisfaction, even in the presence of all that uncomfortable and unwanted stuff, what benefit might that bring? Well, for individuals, it will, and we know from research, it does increase well-being and resilience. It also improves performance and productivity. It improves satisfaction and motivation with life. It reduces work stress and anxiety. And it also increases innovation and problem solving for individuals. So it makes sense to at least try this. And this is where I come to this point this morning about asking you to get involved. So what I'd like you to do now is I'd like you to get a blank sheet of paper. I'd like you to place that sheet of paper in front of you, landscape. And what I want you to do now is to draw 2 lines on your page, a horizontal line and a vertical line. And what I'm going to demonstrate for you now is the ACT matrix created by Dr. Kevin Polk. So today's workshop is called ACT for Mental Health in the Workplace. And ACT stands for acceptance, commitment, and training, or therapy. So ACT in the workplace comes from a behavioural science, and so that comes from therapy. But what I do is I teach people to use this in the workplace or in their own personal lives. So you don't need to be a psychologist to use this, because Dr. Kevin Polk created this simple and easy but effective way of describing what is a behavioural process model used by many psychologists across the globe. So if you've drawn those 2 lines on your sheet of paper in front of you, I'm just going to now start with the demonstration element. So just here at the top of our line, what we have is the 5 senses experiencing. That is the external world that we live in. So the external world that we live in, we see things, we hear things, we can touch things, we can smell things. So using our 5 senses. And at the bottom of this vertical line, what we then have is the internal experiencing, the internal world. Those are things like our thoughts, feelings, memories, sensations, and urges. So just think about it for a moment. If where you're sitting today, you're seeing something, you're seeing me and you're seeing this matrix in front of you, you're hearing me. And when you're using your 5 senses, what you're seeing, hearing, you're touching a pen, you're touching a piece of paper, that will flow through you and it will create internal experiences. Those are thoughts, feelings, memories, sensations, and urges. What I'd like you to do is just take a moment now to notice what thoughts or feelings or emotions are showing up for you as you're sitting here at the moment, as you're listening to me. Just think about what might be showing up for you. Now, when we use this ACT matrix, we always start in the bottom right of the matrix, in the internal experiencing, the internal world, by asking this question, who is important to you? So if you can multitask, that would be brilliant. So I want you to be writing on your sheet of paper, who are the important people to you? Put their names on the page. If you can, also in the chat box, include in the chat box who might be important to you. So don't be shy. So in terms of who's important, great. Thank you, Roisin. Family and friends. Oops. So family and friends, family, yeah. I mean, I'll say my husband. Yeah. So kids, work colleagues, children, friends, work colleagues. Anybody, any pets, maybe? Support networks, absolutely. So support networks. Anybody maybe that's any pets, they might also be important to you. Pets are family, that's right, Tori. I unfortunately am just not that lover of the 4-legged friends, but that's not to mention that everybody else isn't here. And one of the things actually that's reminded me that I should have said before I embarked on showing you this ACT matrix is when we use the ACT matrix, it is a point of view. And with that point of view, we come at it from a non-judgmental and respectful point of view. So when we are looking at this ACT matrix, we are just simply asking some questions. I am not here to judge. And it is respectful. So in theory, I really should have asked you for permission to share this point of view with you today. And I'm hoping that because you're here today that you've given me that permission to do so. So when we think about who's important to us in the internal world, that's the first step in the ACT matrix. So you've written down the people on your matrix that are important to you. The next question that we have in the bottom left of the matrix is now, what unwanted stuff shows up? So earlier I said, you're listening to me, you're seeing the slide in front of you. Think about what's showing up. So can you think for a moment about what you might notice that might be showing up for you today that might be unwanted? So while I'm waiting for you to get involved in the chat box, I might say things like stress might be unwanted. I might say anger might be unwanted. If you think about what Gallup has told us is showing up in the workplace, sadness might be showing up. Past memories, past memories that might make us sad. Those things are showing up in our mind. So stress, anger, sadness. My guess is for some of you, worry might be showing up. Tiredness is also showing up. Exhaustion. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for doing this. Distraction is also showing up. Excellent. Thank you. So we're really noticing a lot of things that are showing up for us this morning. These are things that I call unwanted. You'll remember when I showed the graph from Gallup, it talked about daily negative emotions with the heading. And I said I'd come back to that. So I said when we use the ACT matrix, we come from a respectful and non-judgmental perspective. So as humans, we use language, and that language leads us to believe at times that there's a judgment. So we've all grown up with the positive and negative from our very early days at school. And from we've been a toddler, we've learned the good and bad, the good things that we should do and the bad things that we shouldn't. But really, good and bad and positive and negative, they are words that we can get stuck with. Those are words that lead us to believe that we are doing something wrong. So when we use the ACT matrix, we use words like unwanted rather than negative or bad. Because one thing that I'm going to ask you about is, do you see stress, anger, sadness, past memories, worry, tiredness, exhaustion, or distraction as bad or negative? I'd love to hear what you think about those emotions. Those are internal experiences showing up for you. Are they negative emotions? Are they bad emotions to experience? What do you think? I'd love to hear from you. And there's always a little bit of delay in people typing in the chat box before. Great. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you. I think it depends on how you let them affect you every day. I think we need to experience and appreciate happiness. Sometimes there are perceptions or warnings rather than something actually bad, and that's it. And one of the things that we need to think about is these are not bad and they are not negative. These are the normal range of healthy emotions that humans experience. And one of the things for you to consider if you're here trying to improve your own mental health as well is that really the sign of a healthy mind is one that creates psychological suffering. When I say that, people often scratch their heads and say, what do you mean by that? Well, our mind is designed to protect us from danger. So really these are, as Tori is saying, sometimes these are warning signals. But let's think about for a moment, if you never experienced stress, anger, sadness, worry, tiredness, exhaustion, or distraction, if you never experienced those again, what would your life be like? How would you be? How would your relationships be? You wouldn't appreciate any of the good things. You're absolutely right, Rowan. No worries about the capitalists. We're here from a non-judgmental perspective. You would never fully appreciate, you're right. So we can't appreciate happiness if we haven't experienced sadness. We would be, absolutely, Ashley, we would be emotionless. In fact, it would be an even bigger problem. And it's one of those things that we need to think about. Be careful what we wish for. Not only we would be emotionless because the part of our brain that controls our emotions would be dead, or there would be a severe problem with it. Therefore, we'd have a brain injury. And I don't think anybody here today would want that to be. So with ACT is about changing the relationship that we have with our thoughts and feelings. So when those things show up, it's not something to be annoyed about. It's about noticing, first of all, that those are showing up. So you'd have no compassion or empathy for others, Roisin, you're absolutely right. So let's talk about for a moment now the top left of this matrix and just consider this impact. So the question here for you is, what do you notice yourself doing when stress, anger, sadness, worry, tiredness, exhaustion, or distraction shows up? What do you notice yourself doing to get relief from? So most people, when they experience stress, anger, sadness, worry, tiredness, exhaustion, or distraction, will want to get rid of it. What do you do to get rid of it? Okay, so Roisin will be journaling. Ashley will be taking exercise. What else? So eating. Go for a walk. Brilliant. Thank you, everybody. Cup of tea or coffee. The caffeine sometimes comes in. Meditation. Prayer. Alcohol. So alcohol or drugs. So, you know, we talked about the levels of depression. Wow, okay. So lots, okay. Connection, okay. So connecting to people, spending time with my son. Okay. So I'm just going to move that. So hopefully I've got okay, so doing something you enjoy, breathing exercises. So what I want you to do is think for a moment. When those emotions that are showing up, there are things that you do because you want to get rid of stress, anger, sadness, worry, tiredness, exhaustion, and distraction. By wanting to get rid of those things, that sometimes signifies that we are seeing those things as something we don't want to experience. So again, I'm just going to, grab a pen here. Just want to pop here. So just want to just include the arrows as the reminder of these are the things. So you're doing your matrix in front of you. You're talking about this morning on your sheet of paper, what's showing up for you and how you might want to get rid of that. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to move over into the top right of the matrix by asking the question then, if we think about the who's important to you, what are the things that you notice that bring you satisfaction in your approach to your relationship with those important people? So if I said, for example, my mum was important to me, which she absolutely is, and that's in family and friends, then I would say I spend quality time with mum. It might be call mum to check in. What might you do to bring you satisfaction in your approach to your relationships? What might you do? So, what might you do in terms of pets? Okay, go out for meals together. Does anybody think that you as an individual are important? Because I'm just noticing now that down here we also have ourselves as important. Often that one comes last, or it doesn't come at all in this case. So yeah, I am important. I sometimes need to head off on my own for an hour to clear my head. So yeah, so sometimes we need time on our own. So that might be, there might be some self-care routines that yeah, turn off the laptop, TV, and sometimes the mobile for me. Sometimes we need to just put that on silent or turn it off. So what else might you notice you doing that brings you satisfaction? It might be cooking healthy meals. It could be, for me, I know one of the things that works for me, those of you that know me well, is playing golf is always one of those things that brings me satisfaction. I can do that on my own. Planning and being organised. So this might be, so planning. What would I say, Sharon? So if you remember here, I think this is great to do, because if I'm demonstrating this and I want you to be able to do this on your own, what would planning and being organised look like? So in terms of behaviour, what would I see you doing? Okay, so meal prep for the week. What would I see you doing? So planning meals in advance. It might, okay, so ironing honestly is like meditation. Well, if it works for you, Tori, that's all that matters, isn't that it? Because we're here from a non-judgmental perspective. So this is about, the real thing is hinching my rooms. There you go. Sheena's going to send her ironing over to you, Tori. You could start a new business there. So what I just said is if this works for you, the thing about the ACT matrix is all about workability. So when we talk about workability, the question is, we're noticing here who's important, we're noticing what brings satisfaction, and we're noticing what you want to do to get relief. Question for you then is, are those things working for you? So watching a box set with a 22-month-old isn't always possible to have downtime. Is what you are doing working? So at the top of the line here, top of the vertical line, the top of the horizontal line, what we have is a behavior line. What I see you doing. Are those strategies working for you to get rid of? So if we look at this now together, we can say, when stress, anger, sadness, worry, tiredness, exhaustion, or distraction shows up, does journaling work for you to get rid of? Does exercise, does eating, do those things work for you? Because what we have with the matrix on the left side is relief, and on the right side, satisfaction. So on the left side are things that we experience in the internal and the external world that we want relief from. And on the right side of the matrix, satisfaction. The bit in the middle here in this matrix is you noticing. So this is how we develop psychological flexibility. We develop psychological flexibility by improving our noticing muscle. As humans, as we grow older, we tend to notice less. We become human doings rather than human beings. But really what we want to do is to notice now those things that we've just talked about. So what I'd like to ask you is really in the next week or so, would you have the opportunity to notice who's important to you? Have the opportunity to notice the unwanted stuff that shows up for you, to notice what it is you want to do to get relief from the unwanted stuff, and to notice what it is you do that to get satisfaction in terms of those relationships. So, for example, if I just come back to the left side of the matrix, tiredness. So we talked about earlier, sometimes getting rid of these things is good for us. That's why we don't talk about the good or the bad, because let's say if I'm tired, does it help me if one of the things that I might do on the top here is take a nap? Does that work for me? Yes. Is it to get relief from? Yes. But really what we're trying to do here is we're also trying to notice when we get stuck. So sometimes if we eat things that we don't feel are healthy for us, or we overeat, then we can feel more stress, or perhaps guilt shows up. So with the ACT matrix, what we talk about here is we get into what we call stuck loops. We become stuck on the left side of the matrix, always seeking ways to get relief. When with psychological flexibility, what we can do is we can notice who and what's important. We can notice the unwanted stuff that's showing up. And instead of getting relief from it, we can let it be there without the need to get relief from it and do what matters. That is to do activities that bring us satisfaction. Thinking about that workability question with you, I'd like you to think about looking at your matrix. Do I spend more time trying to get relief from the unwanted stuff? Or am I spending more time trying to get satisfaction? And again, that question is from a non-judgmental and respectful viewpoint, because this is about what is working for you in your life. If you're spending a lot of time trying to get relief from the unwanted stuff showing up, and you feel that you are in those stuck loops, try practicing this ACT matrix. I talked about psychological flexibility is a super skill. And really, a skill is only a skill when it's practiced. So today, if you've chosen to do so, you've got your own ACT matrix in front of you. You're likely to be more psychologically flexible than you were at the beginning of the webinar. But if you continue to practice this ACT matrix on whatever it will work for you, a daily basis or a weekly basis, then you will continue to develop that skill. We don't become skillful by reading or watching, we become skillful by doing. So if you have the opportunity to notice who and what's important, to notice the unwanted stuff that shows up for you, to notice how you want to get relief from the unwanted stuff, and to notice what you want to do that brings you satisfaction, and keep thinking about all of that, then you will improve your own mental well-being. Some of you are here because you also wanted to help support others in terms of their well-being. Well, if I understand myself first, then I'm more likely to understand others. So again, practicing the use of the ACT matrix not only will help you understand yourself, but it will hopefully, even as a result of being here today, It helps you to understand other people. Because when we see people doing things, it is because of something that has shown up inside. And I think we can then be much more understanding when we see an individual doing something that we may not necessarily perhaps appreciate, but we may be more understanding in thinking about the viewpoint that they are coming from and what they may be experiencing. And that's why we're seeing or hearing something in the external world. So when we also talk about mental health in the workplace, we need to think about this ACT matrix is a me matrix, but also what we can do is we can also consider a we matrix. Because when we are working with people, sometimes that has an impact on what we are feeling and experiencing. And it will also impact on what we will do in terms of the external world. So really what you could do as well, as not only a leader, if that's why you're here today, but even as an individual, the we matrix is one or more people. So this matrix applies in terms of your work, your relationships with your work colleagues, or the relationship with your family or your friends. So again, if you want, turn the sheet of paper that you had for the me matrix over, and I want you to draw those same two lines again. Top of the line, we've got 5 senses experiencing. It's the exact same matrix, slightly different questions. Bottom of the matrix, internal experiencing, left side relief, and right side satisfaction. And the bit in the middle this time is us noticing. So when we are together I'm going to demonstrate this from a work perspective. So if we think about when we come together as work colleagues, we have a shared purpose. What are the things that are important to you when you're part of a group? What are the kinds of things that are important, do you think, to you and your work colleagues? Please, again, feel free to include those in the chat box. I'll start us off. So trust generally are one of those things that I can trust my work colleagues, that they are supportive environment. What else do you think might be important to the group of people that you work with? Purposeful work. Absolutely. So purposeful work, reliable, so that we feel that our colleagues are reliable. What else do you think is important to those people in your team, the team that you work within? What's important to you? Okay, so values, feeling listened to, respected. So respect is another one that's showing up. Anybody else, anything that might be showing up? What do you think is important within your team? We could say collaboration might be something again that might be important to the team. I think one of the big things that's important and on top of, well, I think these are all purposeful work. One of the things that everybody wants at the minute is job security. Recognised as experts. Feel valued. So we've got values and also to feel valued. I want you to think about, this is about thinking about your relationship now with other people. So with this we matrix. In the bottom of this matrix now, we're asking, what's the social unwanted stuff we notice showing up? So when we're with people, either in the virtual sense or in the real world when we are actually with people, what unwanted stuff do you notice showing up? what might be some of the unwanted stuff that might show up in your team when they're working together, when perhaps they're meeting online together or in person? I think one of the things that generally shows up in organizations is some frustration might be showing up. And earlier, even if I think of some of the things that you shared for you showing up, I think exhaustion is something that's showing up. We are increasingly hearing about burnout showing up in organizations, and that the impact that that might be having. What do you think? Think about your team. Think about what you think might be showing up in the team that might be some of that social unwanted stuff. So frustration, exhaustion, burnout. Well, we know, again, if I come back to the Gallup survey, stress, worry, anger, sadness are all showing up in the workplace. Stress, thank you, Sharon. So these are things that are showing up for us in the workplace. So it's about being aware that these things are showing up without ignoring them. Yeah, cost of living, fears. Fear is showing up. So fear is showing up in terms of the cost of living. Fear is showing up every day in your workplace. So I want you to think about that for a moment. It doesn't matter whether you're a leader or whether you're a colleague. These are things that you will be aware are showing up for you and for your colleagues. What I want you to think about now in terms of behaviour is, what do you think that we would see? So if we were looking at the people working in your organisation, what would we see or hear people doing to get rid of that social unwanted stuff? So getting rid of fear, getting rid of stress, getting rid of frustration. What would we see people doing? So we would see people, quite often with fear, we'd see people avoiding tasks or activities. Easier to avoid than feel the fear because we're getting rid of. So what else might we see people do? We might see people argue or challenge each other. Saying inappropriate things, yeah. And so we also, Sharon, you're right, so we see and hear people making grievances, and that is, you're absolutely right. So we see people not performing, so productivity levels dipping. We see people becoming withdrawn. We see people, thank you, Tori, yeah, absolutely, quiet quitting. So we'll see people only doing what they believe is they need to do is the bare minimum, and to be able to fulfill their contract of employment or their job description, they will not go over and above. We see changes in behaviour, and we see not helping others. Brilliant, excellent. Thank you for getting involved and thank you for helping. I think what we're doing is, by getting involved, aggression. Okay, so what does aggression look like, Sheena? I'd love to hear. So we think about, is aggression an internal or an external experience? Being cynical, yeah, okay, so being negative in conversations. So top line here is, what are we going to be seeing or hearing people doing? So again, what we're saying here is, just remember, these are as a result of what is showing up inside for the team. I am never surprised looking for new jobs. Yeah, absolutely. Looking for new jobs, absent from work, all of those things we would see in terms of getting relief from. if we move over to the top right of the matrix, we ask the question over here, what do you think brings satisfaction? So what is it that you see team members doing that brings satisfaction in terms of a shared purpose? So again, in other words here, what are the things that we would do for trust, for support, for reliability? And so, yeah, that we feel listened to. So what does that look like in terms of the behavior? So what is supporting each other? What would I see or hear you doing if you're listening? So taking time to talk to colleagues and really listen. So this morning I posted that today was World Mental Health Day, and what I asked is for people to take time out today to ask people how they feel and to really listen to that. So offering help, I can hardly keep up with the many ideas, going above and beyond. I smile when I work extra hours when I see everything that you're including in the chat box, because really you've so easily given so many different ideas in terms of checking in. So yeah, checking in how we can help with the cost of living. What else have I missed out on? Supporting each other, helping our colleagues. So there are things that we can all do. We don't need to wait for leaders to do these things. We can support mental health in the workplace by thinking about the me, first of all, practicing the psychological flexibility. And this pro-social matrix helps to create the context for psychological safety. So really, again, there are lots of things that we can do. And the question, again, that I have, if I'm coming at it from a respectful and non-judgmental perspective, I say, well, do you have the opportunity in the next week or so to notice what's important to the group of people that you work with, to notice what unwanted stuff might be showing up within the team, to notice what people might be doing to get rid of that unwanted stuff, and to notice what it is that would bring satisfaction. And if we're able to practice both the ACT matrix and the pro-social matrix, the we matrix, if we're able to practice that as individuals, and then with our colleagues, show appreciation, is another one, or even with our family. This World Mental Health Day is about making mental health a global priority for everyone. And so what I would love is if you were able to share the ACT matrix with one of your colleagues today. Remember, ask for their permission to show it because it's a point of view. There is the question of the workability. So what works for me might not work for everybody else. But practicing that skill, it's interesting to see if we practice noticing, we practice using the ACT matrix, the change that can make in our lives. And having done some coaching with a client, it just comes into my mind all the time when I use that word noticing, that this individual said, once you start noticing, you can't stop. The world becomes a different place. We can often not be so hard on ourselves. But what we do know is that practicing the noticing, the use of the ACT matrix, developing the skill of psychological flexibility will have an improvement on our health and well-being. But that is for you to try. It is for you to see how that works. So what I've done is I've explained about mental health in the workplace, what mental health is, the benefits of that. I've explained what psychological flexibility is, and I've also demonstrated how to use this. This is a good one for, I think we are all guilty of being hard on ourselves. We absolutely are, Ashley. This is about changing the relationship that we have with our thoughts and our feelings. So I talked about COVID has created gaps in service, gaps in service provision for mental health. I've given you a tool that might work for you and it might work for your colleagues. And if you would like to find out more, some of the things that I do to help improve mental well-being, so I will provide individual coaching using the ACT matrix to help individuals to become more aware and overcome some of the challenges or issues that they may face. I also provide in-house workshops. I do these free monthly webinars. So now you've signed up today, you're on my distribution list. You will be notified of any further webinars that I will be providing. And I do vlogs and blogs on my website, so please feel free to check those out. If you like what you hear today and you would like to find out more, you'd like to have a chat about how this could work in your workplace, because what I do is I teach individuals to use the ACT matrix, or I can teach leaders so that they can be the trainers to train individuals to use the ACT matrix or the pro-social matrix. In terms of the WE matrix, the pro-social matrix, using that as part of your team meetings is something that I find generally really works for people. I always get feedback from leaders saying they're amazed when they use the pro-social matrix, how long the conversation lasts. We all want to be treated like humans, like individuals. And the pro-social matrix sets the context for people to be able to talk freely about how they feel without fear of judgment or reprisal. So people find the benefit of being able to talk in a supportive way about how they are feeling. We are also then becoming more aware of what we might do to get relief from that. And as a team, therefore, we start spending less time on the left side of the matrix getting relief and more side on the right side of the matrix, moving towards things that bring us satisfaction. So we're coming towards the end of the 60 minutes that we're going to spend with each other. You can follow me on Crowdcast, this platform that I'm using today. You'll see just on the top of your screen, there's a follow button. So that will keep you up to date with those webinars that I provide. Feel free to follow me on Twitter or on LinkedIn. I should also say I also have a Facebook page. But I'd love to hear this morning how you felt about what we covered. And I'd love to hear whether this was a benefit, whether it helped in terms of why you were here. Always like to get some feedback. Colin, thank you for joining me. Thank you for being able to stay for the 60 minutes. I appreciate sometimes that can seem long. And if you think that it's of use even to your colleagues, feel free to signpost them to Crowdcast. Remember, this webinar is recorded and will be available on demand. So please feel free to share that link. So yeah, brilliant. Ashley, it's prompted you to send a message to your friend to go for a walk. The world could just be a kinder place when we think about the me and the we, using both those matrix. Ryan, thank you for joining me again. You've become a regular too. So appreciate you coming back. And thank you for taking the time out. Look after yourselves and think about what you could do to improve not only your mental health, but those of your colleagues. Yeah, Tori, thank you. I'm delighted that's provided you with a refocus. And Sheena, useful to go through the matrix. I'm biased, of course, I think it is. Sharon, one, I have a photo, we'll do this with them. Brilliant, Sharon, lovely to hear that you're going to share that. Don't let fear hold you back. Go ahead and demonstrate the matrix. Sure, if you don't get it completely right, what's going to be the worst thing that can happen? Fear is one of the things can often hold us back. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, Orla. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you, Carla, as well. And I look forward to hearing that this was useful in terms of your practice. Take care.